Today we are going to be subtracting integers. Let's go ahead and get started. First of all, let's take a look at this problem here. It's saying 2 minus 4. You're probably thinking, how could I take 4 out of 2? Well, that's what we have negative integers. If I ask you, hey, you have $2 in your bank account and you pay somebody $4. How much money is going to be in your bank account? Is it going to be 0? It's actually going to be negative 2. And there's different ways we can see that. One way to look at that is by using a number line. So let's see if we can do this problem using a number line. I start at 0, 1, 2, and then I have my negatives, negative 1 and negative 2. So in this problem, I'm going to begin with 2. Okay, this 2 right there. But then I'm being asked to take away 4. If I'm asking you to take away 4, that means I must go backwards. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I'm taking away 4. That means that my final answer must be negative 2. Now when I look at this problem, here's what happens in my mind. And my mind might work a little bit different than yours. But when I see this problem, when I see 2 minus 4, this is what I see and what I picture in my mind. In my mind, I have 2 positives. In here, I have 4 negatives. So that minus 4, I translate that in my mind as 4 negatives. So what happens is that this and this cancels. This and this will also cancel, and I end up with a negative 2 as my final answer. That's how I see it in my mind as well. Now let's take a look at this one here. Negative 3 minus a negative 4. It seems like those two are opposite of each other. For example, if I tell you what is the opposite of negative 4, you will tell me, well, the opposite of negative 4 will have to be positive 4. So that's how I see it in my mind too. Opposite of negative 4 must be positive 4. So in my mind, the way I see it is like this. I see 3 negatives, and then those 2 negatives will actually become a positive because the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. Okay, in such a way that this and this cancels all out, and I eventually get positive 1. Now, there is a method called KCO that we also want to study. It means keep, change, opposite. So let's apply this keep change opposite idea with that problem right there. We have -3 minus a -4. So what do I mean by keep? Keep means that this one, we're going to keep it the same, the way it is. That one is going to stay as -3. Okay? Now this minus sign, that's going to change to positive. So what I mean by change, just change the minus to a positive. And what is the opposite of -4? Well, the opposite of -4 is +4. When you add those two together, you get 1. There's other teachers that kind of like to do this as well. -3 minus -4, and they do this trick that actually works pretty well. When they see two negatives like that, and I love this trick as well, they make this a positive in such a way that I have -3 plus 4, and that will be 1. That's a trick that you can apply to any problem, really. It's very cool to have. All right. Let's go ahead and do this one here. Obviously, this is wrong, but this is not. So we have -3 minus 5. When I look at this problem, what I'm really seeing, guys, is two negatives. I don't see the minus sign. I see this one as 3 negatives, and I see this one right here as 5 negatives. When I put that in my head, all those, when I add them together, I get -8. Now we can do KCO with this as well. If I have -3 minus +5, here's what's going to happen. We're going to keep the -3. The minus signs is going to change to positive. And this +5, that's going to change to -5. That will be -8. There are some teachers that like to do this as well. There's also this trick. If I have -3 minus 5, what they do is that they apply KCO in the moment. They turn this into a positive and this into a negative. And that will be a -8. See if we can do it with another problem. I have 2 plus, or 2 minus 8. What would you get there? 2 minus 8. So using KCO, this is the quick way of using KCO. You turn that into a positive and you make this guy a negative. You add those two together and you get -6 as your final answer. That will be using KCO. So once again, we have 6 minus -2. When I look at this round, here's what I do. I see those two negatives and I turn those into a positive. So 6 plus 2 will be 8. Now if you want to do KCO, you can do that too. You're going to get the same thing. So 6 minus -2 will be, you keep the 6, you change this one to a plus, and you change this negative into a plus as well, and you get +8. That is using KCO. Alright, now let's have you try it. See if they're not the same problem. They're not. Alright, you're gonna try problem A. Alright, so hopefully you try problem A. When I see this problem, here's what I see. I see 5 negatives and I see 9 negatives. Okay, so that should give you negative 14. If you use KCO, we have negative 5 minus positive 9. Negative 5, we're going to keep that as negative 5. The minus is going to turn into a positive. And this positive 9 is going to turn into a negative 9, which means when you add those two negatives, you get negative 14. Remember, there is a faster way to do this without having to rewrite everything. Turn this guy into a positive and you make this one a negative. You see that you get the same thing? Yeah. Alright, let's see if we can actually apply that on this one here. We have a negative 3 minus negative 5. See if you can do that on your own. Alright, so what you could do with this one is you can make this one a positive and this one will be a positive. Now you have negative 3 plus 5, that's positive 2. And that is all for those two. Alright, so let's continue using KCO. See if you can do this one here. Alright, so very simple. We want to make this one a positive and this one will also change into a positive. So in here what I really have is negative 4 plus 6. I have more positives than negatives. So this will be positive 2. Remember, why do we subtract in here? Because we have a positive and a negative. Remember, that's what happens when you have opposite signs. Try problem C. Alright, you can try on this one here, for example. I have two negatives right there. That, to me, turns into a positive. All I have to do is add 9 plus 12. And that should give you 21. Let's do a couple more problems and then we'll be good to go. Negative 4 minus 8. This one confused some people. Well, what I do on this one is, what you could do, turn that into a positive, but you have to make this one a negative. So eventually you just have negative 4 plus negative 8. Negative 4 plus negative 8 should give you negative 12. So that is another example that you can rely on. Go ahead and try D, see if you can do those. Or that one. So that turns into a positive, and I have 10 plus 19. We add those two together, and you should be getting 29 as your final answer. How about you actually try example number 7? Okay, so here's what you should have gotten. If you use KCO, we keep the negative 5, we change that to a positive, and we change the negative 10 to a positive 10. So in reality, what you have is negative 5 plus 10 is positive 5. On this one here, D, go ahead and try that one. What you can do on this one is, you can do negative 6, make that a positive, and this one a negative. So now, you're just adding those two negatives, That should give you negative 13. Is that too easy? Well, let's try some hard ones. How about if you try example number 8? Alright, so on this one here, you should have gotten negative 5 plus 2. Well, that should be negative 3. Negative 3 minus 8, that's where we have to be careful. You're going to make this one a positive and a negative. So what you actually have is negative 3 plus negative 8. That should give you negative 11 as your final answer. Should you try E? Alright, so for E, I'm going to make this one a positive, but this one will then be a negative. So 10 plus negative 12 should equal negative 2. And negative 2 plus 1, that's going to give you negative 1. How about if you try example number 9? Alright, so on this one, what I see in here is when I see two negatives like that, I always turn that into a positive. So I have negative 8 plus 3 plus negative 4. Now I have a bunch of positives or pluses. So negative 8 plus 3, you have more negatives than positives, so you're going to get negative 5. Now add that to that negative 4, and you will get negative 9 as your final answer. Alright, make sure you try E. Alright, so what you have done in this one, and this one, they turn into a positive. Negative 3 plus 2, that will equal negative 1. And negative 1 plus 2 will be positive 1. How about some challenging ones? I'll do number 10 for you. This one here, negative 10 plus negative 3. Well, I have two negatives, so I'm going to add negative 3, negative 10 and negative 3 to get negative 13. This and this, I already know when I have two negatives like that, that must turn into a positive. So I'm actually going to write it as a positive 8 plus 6. So negative 13 plus 8, I have more negatives than positives. That means my answer has to be negative. Okay, so 13 minus 8, that's 5. We're going to get negative 5 there. Then finally, negative 5 plus 6, that should be positive 1. Go ahead and try E. Alright, so on this one here, to do those two right there, you can turn this one into a positive and this one into a negative. That is by using KCO. So negative 3 plus negative 7, that will be negative 10. If you were to apply KCO again, this will turn into a positive, and so will this right here. So in reality, you have negative 10 plus 3 plus 4. Negative 10 plus 3, that's going to be negative 7. You have more negatives, that's why it's negative. And then finally, negative 7 plus 4 should equal negative 3. Alright guys, that is all that we have for this video. I hope that you guys learned something today.